Take charge of your thoughts. Take charge of your life. Psychologist, author, speaker, musician, former professor, and the host of Love and Life, Dr. Karen Anderson Averill. Welcome to Love and Life. I'm Dr. Karen Anderson Averill. In episode 49, Instagram dating guru, the Fairy Godfather, joined me in his first ever podcast interview. And today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with the Fairy Godfather. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to episode 49, you may want to start there. It's entitled, How the Fairy Godfather Helps You Navigate Dating in the New Millennium. In part 1 of our conversation, the Fairy Godfather shares how he came to be and how he got the nickname, the Fairy Godfather. He also discusses what sets him apart from other experts in the dating relationship field and why typical dating advice rarely works. Now we pick up our conversation, and the Fairy Godfather explains to us why we have to ask the right questions, but we have to ask them at the right time. You know, something else that you talk about, when I was dating, I was more likely to kind of sit back. Like when you talk about asking the right question, but at the right time, because you don't want to throw this at the first date or second date. Then you come at them, well, what are you doing here? What are you about out here in the dating world? Then, like you say, it feels like you're coming at him like, what are we? Or what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
That we're like, doing?
Oh my God, what? Yeah. Exactly.
So
I don't want to get married,
Yeah. So, right. So asking the question, but placing it at the right time, which I think is really key.
The women need to sort of like be asking the right questions at the right time. Asking the right questions at the wrong time, that's also a bad idea. But, I go into depth for that on my profile. Give step-by-step instructions on how to do it. Because, if you say, why are you dating? And you ask that question after your first date, then you make it about you and him. You know what I mean? You make it about two people that's already built a connection. Whereas if in the second message that you ever send, let's say you're online, you send it's the first question, the first message is, hey, how are you? He might reply, I'm okay, how are you? And you send one back saying, I'm doing great, thanks. So what brings you here? And then you put that on the end of it. Then it's not about you and him. It's just a throwaway question, really. And how men answer that. I've done some research with a female friend of mine. I asked her to use those texts. And she did it with over 100 men. And the answers that she received were, some ignored it, some just said one word, sex, So it's so easy to ask, but after a couple of days of communication, that will be forgotten, that question. It didn't seem personal.
Right.
It wasn't about her and him. It was just about, so, what brings you here? And you're not even asking anything, why are you dating, what's your intent? It's just a very general question, but a man who is serious will say, I'm looking for maybe half or a long-term relationship. And men will say 3 different women, let's say they're all different types of women. A man will have a different answer for each woman. Because some will be looking for a long-term with one woman, but he may just want sex with another. And he'll have placeholders until he finds the one. When I was looking for a long-term relationship, that's how it was. You'd find a woman and she'd be the comfort until something better come along, quote unquote better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something more to your taste or something that you wanted. But we're all deluded anyway as men, because what happens is you'll swipe on a woman, you'll match with her. She might be breadcrumbing you for non-sexual energy, communication. So that's like just communication without any sort of sex. And some women will do that and they'll breadcrumb you for that.
Right.
And then, but you'll think that she's genuinely interested in you when she just wants someone to talk to or someone to say, nice things or something like that. So what happens is then that gives you a misguided idea of what you can achieve as a man.
Well, it's funny because the men are breadcrumbing, hoping for sex eventually at some point, or if they want to just a booty call or something.
Exactly,
Women are breadcrumbing for all that emotional attention.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's what I imagine is, because what they do is they'll talk and talk and talk, and there'll never be a case of meeting up, so it turns into a textationship.
Right.
But they'll be like really very pretty, well, the women, but they sort of know, so they'll be breadcrumbing for that sort of thing, and the men will be breadcrumbing for another reason. But men need that as well. I've needed that before. The emotional side of things. It's just usually. Speaking generalizing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Hey, Black coffee drinkers. Love and Life's newest sponsor, Drink Now, is about to change your world. I'm a Black coffee drinker, and so I know what you've been going through. You're burning your tongue, you're scalding your mouth, you're having to wait 40 minutes before you can even take a sip of your black coffee. By the time your coffee is cooled down enough that you could drink it, your muffin or your donut is already long gone. I know. I can't wait to eat that donut either. But now there's a solution. The Drink Now Perfector takes scalding hot coffee down to a drinkable 140 degrees in just 20 seconds without watering your coffee down. Learn more about Drink Now at drinknow.com and on Instagram at _drink_now_. When I was dating, I believed that actions speak louder than words, but you actually have an interesting take on this. You say, no, you can't always trust the actions. Explain that to the listeners.
Yeah, well, this is another quote that boils my piss, and that's the actions speak louder than words, which they don't. Especially if you look at cases where men have love bombed. I used to say to women, use myself as an example, I used to date women and I used to say, I don't want a long-term relationship. This is just fun, and I'll be very clear with that. And sometimes I would say that more than one. If I saw them maybe, acting like that wasn't the case. But what they heard is you can try and convince me. You might be the exception, but I never said that.
Right.
So they believe that they might be the exception. But because I'm a man and I still get carried away, see men get infatuated. They won't fall in love in those early stages of dating. They won't fall in love until they're in a committed relationship. But they will become infatuated. And when a man's infatuated and he's chasing a woman and wanting to have a good time with her, then it will seem like he's falling in love. And that can be very confusing for a woman. And that's what I was doing. I was becoming infatuated and enjoying being in the moment, but never in a million years did I think that it was going to be long term. I always knew that it was short term. And because I'd said it right at the beginning, my conscience was clear. Mm-hmm. So although she's getting deeper and deeper, my conscience was clear. I'm like, I've already told her. Mm-hmm. But now I'm a lot more mindful of it, and I can see the damage that it does. Before I started listening to women who were actually going through it, I actually saw a woman break down crying about it. I think when you see that, you start to become a little bit more self-aware, but also mindful of what it can cause. So is it okay to say, well, I was honest and upfront? Is that enough when you know that your actions can override the words, or vice versa? I might say, I don't want a relationship, but my body language and how I treat her will tell her that I do when I don't. So actions don't always speak louder. Actions can actually lie and confuse the fuck out of a woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd never really thought of it that way. And I think that is another really important word that you're giving women. And it's a little counterintuitive because they keep hearing the opposite message from so many other sources. Mm. So they need to know, listen, his actions may look like he is madly in love with you, and you may be receiving it that way, but that still may not be the actual situation at hand.
So, and this is just like love bombing, where a man will, spend lots of money and treat a woman like a princess just for sex. On one hand, she's being treated like a princess, but he has no intentions of making her his on a long-term basis. So that's the same as actions speaking louder than words, but over time, actions and words must match over time. And this is why I come up with a phrase, consistently persistent over time with actions matching words.
Yeah.
Because that's what it has to be. It can't just be actions and words or words and actions. It has to be them together over time. So even if it's just like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, that's just a speck in time as far as a relationship is. Just a few weeks. Someone says to me, on your third date, let's not get too excited. Still have zero expectations, especially in those first couple of days. Zero expectations. People mustn't confuse expectations with standards. One you must hold and have and raise, and the other you can lower. You can still have high standards and zero expectations, and that's what I try to get across, because that's a superpower. That is, if you can have zero expectations. And women are actually starting to come up to me and say, I had a date, it didn't work out, but it was only 1 hour. I didn't expect anything from it. And without me saying that, you see, women will maybe get that over like 100 dates. They'll be broken down to things like that. I don't want them to be broken down to things like that. I want them to learn and be proactive with that thing, rather than it being a reactive sort of message that they're receiving.
Well, zero expectations. I'm glad that you're clarifying that. I never conflated the two. Expectations and standards are quite different for me, but I can understand where someone could get muddy. For sure. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you. And I remember I did a post about this a while ago, and it reminds me of what you're talking about with zero expectations, where a friend of mine had told me years ago, he's like, in the beginning of a relationship, just sit back and watch the movie. Because what we do is we start projecting, like I've been on 3 dates with him and I start projecting everything I hope he's going to be. Yeah. And I'm like, he's going to be this. And in my head, I'm essentially writing a script and feeding him lines. Mm-hmm. He's going to bring me flowers. He's going to love my cats. You start doing, and it's almost impossible not to, unless you continue to remind yourself, especially in that early part of the relationship when it's easy to get carried away. Yeah. But if you're reminding yourself, I just need to sit back and watch. And then like you're saying, watch and make sure that what he's saying is not what I'm interpreting what he's saying as how I want it to be, but interpreting what he's saying as it is. And does it match his behavior, that consistently persistent? Did I say it right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I look at it like this. Imagine if you bought a lottery ticket. It's like spending the money before you've got it. So you buy a lottery ticket and you've already thought, right, well, I'm going to get a swimming pool and get myself a Ferrari, and all these types of other things. But you've not even won the lottery yet. You've just bought the ticket. And that's what the first date is like. You've got a ticket. Let's not get fucking carried away yet.
Exactly. As a woman, I'm always frustrated when I see women kind of getting ahead of themselves, because I think, and you do a lot of this, don't open up your, what do you guys call it? Your diary? We call it a schedule or your planner, you say, don't open it up. And I always tell women, it's funny. And Dan, he teases me that he calls me, and we may have told you this when we saw you in the summer. He says that the first couple of weeks we were dating, that I was a pokey texter. Like I took too long to text back. And he thinks, he's like, you were playing hard to get. And I look at him, I'm saying, no, I had a life and it was very full. And just because this nice guy had taken me out on a couple of dates didn't mean that I was going to drop everything I'm doing the minute I get a text from him. Yeah. And I think that just shows someone that you respect yourself and you respect your own life and what you've got going on. And I think that's attractive.
Well, some women will say to me, I don't want to play games, by straight away up. But what I say, don't play games, just get busy. Just be busy. Yeah. And I know what you're like. I send you a message and fucking text about God knows how long to reply. So that's just you, but it's because you're busy. And that's how it should be. You should be busy. You shouldn't be watching your phone for a reply.
And it's not playing games. I agree with you. It's not playing games. It's having a life. And it's also, like you said, it's not giving what hasn't been earned. It's like if after 2-3 dates, you haven't earned that I'm going to be at your beck and call.
Exactly.
And I see women making that mistake a lot. So I love that you focus on that. This quarter, Love and Life lends a hand to 11th Candle Company. All proceeds from the sale of my book, Single is the New Black, Don't Wear White Till It's Right, will go to 11th Candle Company's Legacy Foundation. To hear more about the incredible work Amber Runyon is doing to help women escape sex trafficking, please take a listen to my podcast interview with her. It's episode 42, How Does a Candle Company Combat Human Trafficking? 11th Candle Company. Check them out at 11thcandleco.com and be sure to use promo code TAKECHARGE to receive 20% off your entire purchase. And I know you get you have tons and tons, maybe thousands now of DMs of fan mail and thank you and women reaching out and saying, this guy had been just a pain for so long and I allowed it and finally I blocked him. But then at the same time, I know sometimes you get pushback and women will say, sometimes I see stuff I'm thinking, what? Like, what do you know? And they don't like your advice. And I always wonder, what are the main concerns or issues that they push back against? And of course, I think it's probably because you're pushing a button for them. Like you're basically holding up a mirror to them. They don't like what they see because they know that they're guilty of a lot of this stuff. But what are some of the ones that you hear a lot?
Well, it's usually something that goes against their natural edges. So that could be anything by not chasing, not oversharing, not replying straight away, not giving up the goodies until it's been earned. All those type of things that it's not just women, it's men as well. I have to make a conscious effort to do these things as well. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to become abundant because the scarcity principle works both ways. And I've actually watched myself become abundant, even though I know and I know how it works. It still attacks the subconscious and it still gets you. And when a woman gives me time in between, I still chase. Do you know what I mean? I still pull away if she's abundant, even though I know. So I know how it works, but it still fucks with my head, so.
Yes, it's so true.
So I get it and I understand why they may push back because of the natural edges. But I try and ask them to be mindful of it and let them know the consequences of not being mindful and maybe taking action to reacting in a different way. And I let them know that maybe if they do hold back, that then it can be better for them in the long run.
You're right. It's the natural urges. It's the natural inclination. Like we said, you get excited. You just want to text back right away. You want to be too available because you're excited about it. And then all these principles that you've been laying out, then they're out the window and they're shooting themselves in the foot. And it's too bad and so then I think they're probably lashing out at you because they're mad because they know deep down they didn't pay attention to what you told them. And now they're angry about it.
Yeah, I think, I don't get many lashing out at me. The majority are brilliant, and the support is immense. But there may be one or two where you maybe touch a raw nerve with us. Like when I'm honest about myself and I say, when I was younger, I did this or I said that or I did this, then that can touch a really raw nerve. A man might have done that to them and then I'll get backlash then. This is why in the captions, I will say, listen, don't shoot the mess, don't break my balls. You know what I mean? I'm just a messenger. I don't have to say these things. I can keep them to myself like everybody else.
Right.
No fucker else is sort of like going and saying, hey, I did this, don't fall for this, But, it's said it's coming from a good place, even though maybe at the time it wasn't, I try and make amends from it, do you know what I mean? But I don't want to be scolded for it. But then I understand, I understand why. I just don't want it.
Yeah. Right. Well, and if guys knew what you were telling women about the male mind, then you might get a lot of backlash. Yeah, well, they'd be like,
they just lie anyway. My work gets shared all over the internet, and you read some of the fucking comments by some of these men, and they just some of them are actually, they'll say, yeah, this is right, but they'll all be fake accounts, you see. So the guys who are honest will have fake accounts. They'll be hidden behind another profile and say, this guy's right. But you might get another guy who sort of spins it and says, oh, this works both ways, or not all men. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, all right. Yeah. We know that, but I run a fucking woman-only account, so I can always direct it as women and men this, because I give advice for heterosexual women. So the advice is always going to be about men or about women. And I like to use he and him, rather than people or everybody, because it doesn't mean as much. It doesn't flow as well with the writing. I don't think it hits the nerve hits the point
right.
as much as it needs to. If I say he did this or he did that, rather than people say this or people say that, I find it, I'll call myself a writer, but as a writer, you want it to flow and you want it to deliver a message, and if delivering that message means in the sex that it is, which is male, then you do it.
It's more direct, and it makes sense that you kind of keep it to what you know, a heterosexual man's point of view on dating, what you've learned, what you've experienced, and like we talked about earlier, coming from a perspective of most of the time not wanting anything long term, and here's how it goes down. So, ladies, if you do want something long-term, these are the things to avoid. These are the strategies to take, and then see what happens. But you make an interesting point too. When you throw something out there on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, people, they take from it what they want. I mean, I've had a lot of my stuff twisted, not to the extent that you have. Recently, we've had an epidemic of plagiarism with all your stuff going just all over the place, and people taking straight up credit for it, which as a former professor drove me absolutely nuts. So I was glad you had your fab femmes to descend upon the people in violation and let them know. But, I talk a lot about being, when I was single, people would say I was too picky. And so when I've talked about women, I'll always say, stay picky, be selective, have high standards. And some guys, then they come at it from their point of view, and they've been hurt by some woman who left them or broke their heart, and they're like, and she was too picky. She just thought she was a princess, and so everyone's coming with their baggage of wounds from their experiences, and so that it's just they're going to receive the word or perceive it in the way that from their frame of reference.
Yeah, we speak about being self-aware, and I also speak about being realistic.
Yeah.
Dr. Karen Anderson Abril.
I'd love to connect with you on social media. On Instagram, I'm at Dr. Karen, dr.karin. Here I share my thoughts on love and life through original quotes and images. I'd love to have you join the conversation. On Twitter, I'm at Dr. Karen Anderson. You can find me live tweeting my favorite shows, This Is Us, Will and Grace, and my guilty pleasure, all shows Bachelor Nation. On Facebook, I'm at Dr. Karen Anderson Abril. There you can read my blog, see where I'm speaking, and find links to others' podcasts when I'm a guest on their show. So recently there was a post that you did, and I was looking at some of the comments, and there was a woman who said something about how it was really rough for her right now dating because she'd gained some weight, and she felt like that was affecting her ability to feel attractive.
I remember that comment.
Your comment. Yeah, your comment was so sincere and so gentle, and yet still also very straightforward. You said something like, yeah, I know, because sometimes if I gain a couple pounds, I don't feel the best. And I know that affects how I feel about being out there and how I come across. And then you said something, but hand in hand, you said, but don't give up and take some time to work on you. Or you just said it so gently, but also so like, yeah, if you're not feeling good about your body, it's going to make a difference in the dating world.
I remember that comment. I've been there before. I've lost about maybe 30 pounds, over the years.
Wow.
And it didn't really affect me that much because, I was drunk at the time. But I was sort of saying as well, that women prefer me now. Women prefer me with the body I have now than they did before. And that's just the harsh reality of the life we're living. And I try and get that across the best I can, without being too insensitive. But I'll use myself as an example because, and these people who may say that's shallow, some women have in the past, I say, well, would you date a man who was 3 foot tall? But, I was being very serious. I said, would you date a man who was 3 foot tall? She said, no.
Right.
I says, well, why not? And she said, oh, well, says, well, what's wrong with them? There's nothing wrong with these people. They've got hearts just like us, you know, flesh and bone just like us. Why wouldn't you do? Oh, not my type. Well, exactly. You know, so everybody has a type.
Right.
If we go to a certain degree, you know, if we go from one end of the spectrum, I always like to go to the very end of the spectrum to prove a point with some people, because, and that's what I do.
It's effective.
So, and then it makes her think, oh, well, maybe I'm shallow. No, you're not shallow. You just got personal taste, you know. And that's why I try and get off. But I do use myself as an example because, you know, I know women are the worst, you know. Women will say on their profile, must be this high, must be this, must be that. Well, women don't really put stuff like, you know, I've sort of like seen many men's profiles, you know, helping women out with their online dating. You know, and guys, they even fucking don't put out on there. But, and I'll tell you something else as well. When we talk about, if you look on Instagram, all the posts, there's no wonder some men may have a problem with women, because they sort of have they'll start this butterfly effect by saying, you know, if you're under 5'7", then you're a boy, or they'll say if your dick's not so big, then you're only, you know, you're a little man, do you know what I mean? Or if you're not earning this amount. But all the posts say this, you know. Yeah. And so, but I don't see any real posts like that about women, do you know what I mean? There may be the odd one or two, but not in the huge masses that they are with the women. So I sort of looked at that and I thought, well, that can cause quite a lot of problems, and you can maybe understand why some guys might be fucking taking that to heart, especially if they're only 5'6", maybe don't have a head of hair. Do you know what I mean? So,
right.
I mean,
yeah. Oh, there's a double standard right now, I think. Women are allowed to say some things that men can't say, and they are not vilified the way a man would be if he said a comparable comment.
Men are the dickheads who are, you know, the majority of the people who are dating and causing the problem. The majority, not all, obviously, but the majority will be men saying they want a relationship and don't, or you know, the fuckboys. So what happens is you've got the fuckboys, then you've got these posts here. But I don't think they're such a bad thing. They are bad, but what I mean is I don't think they're that bad. So, but I do think they can have an effect with some men, and maybe they'll be like, oh, fuck, us versus them type thing, and I don't like that sort of thing. So
that concludes part 2 of my conversation with TFG. In the next segment, we continue on our conversation about dating in the modern age. And in particular, we get into how Tinder changed the landscape dramatically, as all of you can personally attest to if you're out there on the scene. The Love and Life hack for this week is, don't play games, just get busy. TFG reminds us that the scarcity principle is always at work. So we want to make it work in our favor, which entails staying busy in our own lives and respecting and honoring what we've got going on, such that a new person has to wait a little bit. We can't give them all of ourselves. They haven't earned it yet, so they're not going to get it yet. Don't play games, just get busy. Take charge of your thoughts. Take charge of your life. Thank you so much for listening, for subscribing to the podcast, for leaving reviews and rating episodes. It all makes a huge difference. So thank you so much. And until next time, make it a great week.
Dr. Karen Love and Life is produced by Tim May and host and executive producer Dr. Karen Anderson April.